ask you to introduce yourselves, and then they'll read the question, and hopefully there'll be some time markers at the right time in this particular window. Just wish you the very best. And before I turn it over real quickly, someone just joined us in the waiting room. It might be Helena or Helene or Helen.
I don't know that person, but I mean, it's possible they might be like someone with the center or a judge. I don't know.
Okay. And let me just admit them real quick and make sure they're in the right space. And if not, we'll put them back in the waiting room and we'll pick up real quick so that no one misses anything that they want to see. Hello, is it Helene or Helena? Can you tell us what state you are looking to observe? Oh, I just hit a button to ask you to unmute. Oh, real quick, could you unmute yourself for just a moment? There you go. And what state are you looking to observe?
Nevada.
All right, then what I'm going to do is put you back in the waiting room. You are a little early for Nevada, but we'll see you in about an hour to watch them. They are currently on a different link. So okay. I'm going to put you in the waiting room.
So what time will Nevada go on? Is that a half hour from now?
If I'm reading the schedule correctly, Nevada is scheduled to start at 5:30.
5:30
on this link, yes.
5:30 East Coast time.
Correct.
Okay.
Now that's for unit 3. So if there's a different unit that you're looking to watch, then you might want to be in contact with the coach or the teacher to see what the unit is that you want to observe.
Okay, I wasn't sure. There's so many different links, and I just got this thing this morning.
I get it.
And 3 of the kids I know are involved in this, so it's fabulous. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, I'm sure they look forward to seeing you. So I'm going to put you in the waiting room right now.
Okay,
and hope to see you a little bit later.
All right, thanks.
All right, and now we'll turn it over to your judges and they will introduce themselves. Have a wonderful hearing.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome. Congratulations for being here on National Top 12 Day. I'm Rita McCannon. I'm an attorney in Huntsville, Alabama. Your other 2 judges are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darcy Kern. I'm a history professor at Southern Connecticut State University. I'm also a native Californian. I'm from Bakersfield, so I'm looking forward to hearing you guys.
Hi, everyone. I am Tom Vance. I'm a professor of education at Kansas State University, and I look forward to a great conversation.
Great. Tell us out who you are, please.
Sure. Good afternoon. We are Foothill High School's Unit 3, representing the state of California. My name is Lexi Barrera.
My name is Emily Zhang.
My name is Helen Hahn. We'd like to thank the judges, the audience, and the timekeeper for being here today. And we'd like to introduce our coaches, Mr. McBride, Mr. Denimore, and Mr. Constantellos.
So much. We are going to talk about Unit 3, as you're already well aware. I'm going to read to you question number 1. And after I finish reading, we'll look forward to hearing what you have to bring to us today. Quoting Oliver Wendell Holmes, I do not think the United States would come to an end if we lost our power to declare an act of Congress void. I do think the Union would be imperiled if we could not make that declaration as to the laws of the several states. What impact has judicial review had on federalism? Is judicial review a counter-majoritarian practice? Please support your position. What limits, if any, would you place on the practice of judicial review? We look forward to hearing from you. You may begin.
Article 8's broad language left the bounds of national power of politically with figures like Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson having clashing constitutional visions. We believe that over time, the Supreme Court has used judicial review to solidify federalism in 2 main ways. First, granting national supremacy in select fields, and second, affirming that the national government has the responsibility to protect individuals from states.
As early as McCulloch v. Maryland, 1819, the court has asserted that there are circumstances where the states have little to no leverage or power relative to the national government. This happens in applications of preemption, which restricts states' power by having the national government occupy the field in instances such as immigration and currency. While preemption mostly cements federal supremacy, it also carves out areas of broad state authority.
Additionally, judicial review is essential to protecting individuals from abusive state governments. Selective incorporation through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause has been the main avenue of increasing federal supremacy by applying the Bill of Rights to the states on a case-by-case basis. For example, the 1963 case, Gideon v. Wainwright, recognized the Sixth Amendment's right to public defense. Through the doctrines of preemption and incorporation, judicial review has solidified the power of the federal government.
Judicial review is counter-majoritarian, but it's designed to be. During the ratification debates, Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist 78 that few men were qualified to be judges and argued that the Constitution must be regarded by the judges as a fundamental law. By making these assertions, Hamilton advocated for a highly qualified group of justices who were only bound to the Constitution.
Alexander Bickel defines the counter-majoritarian difficulty as a struggle of an unelected court striking down laws passed by elected legislatures. Sometimes counter-majoritarianism can be used to protect racial and ethnic minorities. For example, in Loving v. Virginia, 1967, the court ruled that racial classifications call for the most rigid scrutiny, even if there is popular support for discrimination.
While judicial review may be counter-majoritarian because it overturns a legislative act, it does not necessarily go against the people's will. For example, striking down unfair election laws passed by state legislatures has empowered the majority in cases like Reynolds v. Sins, 1964, which established the one-person, one-vote doctrine.
However, the court has often neglected the will of the majority in cases such as Lochner v. New York, 1905, and Citizens United v. FEC, 2010. These monumental decisions had harmful ramifications, as the court put the interests of small elite groups before those of most Americans.
This counter-majoritarian difficulty has led some scholars to propose limits on the practice of judicial review. For example, UNLV law professor David Orent-Litcher suggests a supermajority 7-2 decision in the Supreme Court to overturn state laws. However, this proposal diminishes judicial power and would not resolve the problem of split-circuit court decisions.
Rather, our unit argues that there are already sufficient limitations on judicial review between the court's self-imposed checks, appointment of justices, and limiting the court's appellate jurisdiction.
In fact, the most vital checks are those the court imposes on itself, including the rule of four, rational basis testing, justiciability, and the political questions doctrine. However, this is only viable with the justices' willingness to abide by their own limitations.
When the justices excessively use their power, checks from the other branches can pressure the court into limiting itself. For example, President Roosevelt created an issue out of the court's hostility to the New Deal through harsh rhetoric and the threat of court packing. These actions pressured justices previously against the New Deal to uphold the Social Security Act. Ideally, there should be just enough external pressure to encourage the court to limit itself. Thank you.
Right, let me ask you quickly. There is an idea that a single Supreme Court seat can change history. And to be a little more explicit, when someone retires from the Supreme Court or someone passes away and that person has to be replaced, that replacement can actually change history. Do you agree or do you disagree? And tell me why.
I completely agree with that assertion, as we see that, for example, when Chief Justice Earl Warren was appointed to the court, he was originally appointed as a more conservative pick by a conservative president. And so his rulings turned out to be rulings that sided more with what liberals at the time would have agreed with. And so we see how just this one appointment of a Chief Justice in history completely changed the course of the court at that time.
Furthermore, we see that with the passing of Justice Ruth Gator Binsberg and the appointment of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, that now we have 6 Republican appointed justices on the court. And this has definitely changed the way our court is kind of thinking and their ideology. As we see, there's a lot of conversation about overturning Roe v. Wade in 1973. So even bringing conversations back about such things like that and not having Chief Justice Roberts as a swing vote anymore necessarily shows that there is a difference in our court.
Okay, I'd like to turn our attention to the division of power between the federal government and the states and the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Constitution. So on the whole, do you think that judicial interpretation of the Constitution has increased federal power vis-a-vis the states, or the opposite?
I believe that it's definitely increased. Judicial review has increased federal power on the whole. For example, they have on Article 1, Section 8, the Commerce Clause, where they can regulate interstate commerce. And basically, you can do a lot of things to fit into interstate commerce. Basically, anything between the states, if you can prove that as commerce, it can be. However, on the flip side, there's also been instances where they can rule that it's not commerce. For example, the 1997 Prince v. US in the anti-commandeering clause, where you cannot force the states to. So there is that delicate balance that judicial review has upheld, where they do prioritize the national government in instances such as immigration and currency, but also they do carve out those select fields as well.
So let's see if you can't, that's excellent. Let's see if you can't, any of you, not just you, but any of you. So when the court's faced with, you said, Commerce Clause, this, leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So is the 14th Amendment, let's be honest, and yada, yada. So, so what, if you could give the Supreme Court some advice and say, hey, here are some principles that you should follow when you're trying to decide between increasing the power of the national government or the states retaining their power or increasing the power of the states, what principles would you suggest?
One principle that I would suggest is for them to, instead of invoking the political questions doctrine in cases such as Rucho v. Common Cause 2019, which had to do with political gerrymandering, I think that they should have kind of empowered themselves to rule on political gerrymandering, which inherently puts more power within the national government, because I think that political gerrymandering is a really big issue and a threat to the validity of our voting systems. And I think that leaving that in the hands of the state, especially in the wake of cases such as Shelby County v. Holder in 2013, which got rid of the pre-clearance requirement, I think that the national power needs to have more power to regulate these kinds of things. And I think that the court should have made a step in protecting federal power over unfair voting laws.
Okay, so one is political processes, elections, those kinds of things. A court, when the state, when a case comes before us, we're gonna give those strict scrutiny. Anything else? Any other suggestions for the court?
Yeah, one suggestion I would have a court is to be less hypocritical. For example, in the 2021 South Bay United Pentecostal Church v. Newsom, they ruled that they upheld California's health restrictions for COVID and they struck those down, and they upheld they allowed you to go into churches. However, they did not allow singing. And I strongly agree with Justice Gorsuch's concurrence in this decision, where he said, if Hollywood is allowed to open their live studio audiences and they're allowed to film, then why shouldn't a single soul be able to enter California's churches? So I would say that the court has been very hypocritical, also in the instances that my unit mate has said.
Going back to your question about the judiciary increasing federal power over states' power, I believe through the 14th Amendment's substantive due process that the court's been able to increase more federal power. And I believe if it's in in light of giving rights to more individuals, that should be the primary principle that the court should look at.
Thank you.
You guys talk a lot about how Lochner and Citizens ruled in favor of a small group of elites. You say few men are qualified to be on the Supreme Court. I'm wondering what qualifies someone to be on the Supreme Court? And rather than say diversity of gender or race, we need more diversity of educational backgrounds on the Supreme Court. Say someone from, I don't know, Cal State Bakersfield instead of Harvard and Yale and Princeton, et cetera.
Go ahead, Helen.
So we see that right now in Congress, only 3% of the members of Congress really represent the lower educational level of many of the individuals in our country. So they haven't been to a school after high school. And we see that this should be implemented in the courts, as it's become this elite body that the founders kind of set up for. And instead, we should try to elect different justices of different educational levels, maybe not ones that have necessarily graduated from law school.
We see in Article 3 that there are no actual requirements for justices to be appointed. And while I would say that there is the requirement that you should attend law school, there are some requirements, but I don't believe that the prestige or the name brand should matter as long as you have that general background of experience.
What do you think about the way the justices are appointed, nominated, that is, and confirmed? Do you see any reason to change the nomination and confirmation process, or do you think that there's a way that it could be improved?
I absolutely believe that the confirmation process should be changed. For example, we saw the whole controversy in 2016 where Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to even put the confirmation of Merrick Garland onto the schedule. And in that way, and comparing that to the expedited process he had for Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, it's pretty obviously very partisan. And so that is definitely a component that we would like to change.
Another aspect that could be considered is in Northwestern law professor Stephen G. Calabrese's proposal for 18-year term limits of the justices. He suggests that the way that this appointment process would go down in having these 18-year term limits that would kind of mimic the length of a life term, or just mimic the overall feeling of having stability on the court, would be to have these appointments and confirmations done in non-election years. So in other words, the president's first and third year during his or her term. And in this way, we know that it would help prevent some of the political structures that kind of form as a result, such as in midterms, coming up for midterm elections, or the president's next election. And so I think that this could help combat that as well.
Going back to appointing justices, I believe that Idaho has an independent judiciary committee that actually appoints these justices. However, even though this might work in the state, I feel like it'd be hard to incorporate on a national level, especially in the Supreme Court, as there would be a body above the Supreme Court, and the Constitution doesn't set us up for that. So I think in that way, there shouldn't be another committee on top of the Supreme Court.
What? Oh, go ahead.
It's cutting us off.
What's that? Oh, I can't see. I don't have a
Time.
Oh, it's time. Okay.
Our
Sorry about that, it's
facilitator is kicking us all out. What a great job you all did, how prepared you were, and were not stumped by a single question, and you wanted to jump in and answer. Let me let the other judges talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, I was super impressed. You know, this is day 3 of the national finals. There's some things that you just expect to see by all 12 teams. You know, all 12 teams really know their stuff. You know, they have you know, well-developed ideas, and they can cite Supreme Court cases, and the prepared statements are all very shiny and sparkly. But it's a different thing entirely to take those ideas and be able to abstract from those specifics to some general principles, which is what I asked you to do. And you did do it. And and there are other things that you might have said too, but it doesn't matter that you didn't say them all. You said, individual rights. That's important, Vance. Political processes. That's important, Vance, and something that we want to nationalize. And so we're certainly any of the rights in Article or any of the powers of the federal government in Article 1, Section 8. Certainly any of the rights in the Bill of Rights. Absolutely fair game. And so I thought you did a very good job with, let's be honest, a difficult question to think on your feet like that. So very good.
Yeah, this was excellent. You guys, both in general principles and in specifics, you did a great job. I thought your response to my question saying Article 3 has no actual requirements for a Supreme Court justice was excellent. You talked a lot about California, South Bay versus Newsom. The gerrymandering issue, I thought your response to that was really fascinating, especially coming from California, because California is so gerrymandered and the districts hardly ever change. So I thought that was great. But then you pulled out Idaho. Where's this Idaho commission coming from? Yeah, this was just a very pleasant experience, and you guys did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.